Hillel brought in what he was saying about Ben Ishchai, about Palti Ben Laish. You got to read this. It's unbelievable. He's saying that Palti Ben Laish was a Gilgal later in Masya ben Charash, who became blind when he didn't want to look at a woman. He says that because Palti Ben Laish had looked at Michal, so Ramasi ben Charash corrects that. Both of them are Gilgulim of Yosef. This is okay. So this I don't need this in English. This is the Benish, the drushes of the Ben Ishchai in Parshas V'Eschana. I don't think I have the drushes. I have the halachas. That's a separate sefer, right? The drushes of the Ben Ishchai. No, this is the halachas. This is the regular Ben Ishchai.
I think I know who made the book.
Yeah. Just see what this means. Perushim of the drushes of the Ben Ishchai. Perushim translated Shalom Abudi.
Abudi. Yeah. I know the family.
David Solomon.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see where we're holding.
The Mishnah.
Mishnah on Chaf. Chaf Amud Beis. Okay, I think Hashem, if you're able to learn Torah every day, it's chus about learning. We should have the base of English immediately. Learning Neshmas, I've called Vasprach Yamet, sons of the Betzian, the Fushleima, from the Betzara. I'll get to Elias when things prayer for my father and Mary Madel and Chaim Ben Sarah, Jimmy. Okay, Mishnah says like this. Can I borrow this? I want to read this. Better put your name in it, so if I lose it, someone will know where to bring it to. Okay. It says, we're talking about the king. He wants to go to battle, and it's a battle of that's not conquering the land of Israel the first time on its way in. It's just to like increase territory or something. So then he needs to get permission from the Sanhedrin of 71. Pirates lasisly derech, and he's allowed to break through like fences and people's properties, make for himself a path, and no one can protest against him. Derech hamelach ein le'shir. How wide he's going to make it, his road, could be however he wants. When it comes to taking loot from the spoils of war, everyone takes. And they give to him. And he takes the first portion. We'll have to see what's going on over there. Okay. The Gemara says like this. Why do we need to say that he goes to battle with permission from the Sanhedrin? The first Mishnah of the Masechta already said that. It says, Tanina Chadazimna, we already learned this in the Mishnah. And the Gemara doesn't accept if there was a Mishnah that gets repeated. So we already had that. You don't have to say it twice. You must be telling me something new. If it's explicit. It says, the first Mishnah says that you don't go to battle. It's talking about which court you need. It says you need a court of 71 judges. So why do we need to repeat it over here? The Gemara answers, I did the Tana call Mili the Melach, Tananam Mitzion Lachemes as well. Over here we're talking about all the halachas of a king. So yes, before we mention that the Sanhedrin decides if you go to battle, but now we're discussing the matters of a king. We list everything out, and one of them is that he has to go to the Sanhedrin before we go to battle. So we repeat it again because we're dealing with halachas of a king. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda was a student of Shmuel. First, he was a student of Rav. He was also a student of Shmuel. Now he says that Kol Amar b'Parshas Melech Mutar B'I. This is in Shmuel, in the book of Shmuel Aleph, right? The people come to Shmuel. It says Shmuel was old. He has these sons. They take bribes. Yoel and someone else, Avia maybe, take bribes. Remember the name? They take bribes, and the people are resented. So they say, "We don't want your children. We want the king." So Shmuel asks Hashem. Hashem says, "They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me." And then he gives a speech. And he gives them a speech. He says, "Yeah, I'll make you a king, but you should know that he's going to take your sons into battle. He's going to take your daughters to be cooks. You're going to be taxed heavily, and you're asking for it now, but you're going to regret it." So there's a whole bunch of things over there that Shmuel is discouraging them from taking a king. So there's a machlekes now. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Shmuel. This is a different Shmuel. Shmuel says that everything that Shmuel said, the Shmuel Hanavi said, but Parsha Melech Mutabai, those things are actually allowed. What Shmuel was saying is that he's going to be allowed to take your sons and take your daughters and take the spoils and take the right. He'll be allowed to do the draft. Yeah. Rav says, he says, no, he was just threatening them. Doesn't mean that he's allowed to do it. It says, he was putting, when you're going to have this, it says that there's a problem that's discussed in commentaries, that there was a command to appoint a king. It says you should appoint a king. And then Shmuel gets all angry and says, "You're asking for a king, you're like rebellious people, asking for a king." So that's
but
it needs to be reconciled.
Then in the Chumash is that if you want to have a king, you have to follow such
rules. Right. That could be an answer. But however, okay, we'll see some opinions here about this. But whatever the case is, when you put on a king, that this fear should be on you, and therefore he's going to be allowed to do these things. Not he's going to. Oh, I said that wrong. Not that he's allowed to do these things. Not that he's allowed. Okay. Now it says Kitanai. It says this is a machlekes tanaim. Rabbi Yossi says, "Kol amir parshas melech mutabai." Anything that, in other words, the machlekes between Rav and Shmuel goes back earlier. The machlekes goes back to Tanaim. Rabbi Yossi says, "Kol amir parshas melech mutabai." Anything that was said in that portion in Shmuel Perek, king is allowed to do. Rabbi Yehuda says, that was only said to instill fear. That the fear will be upon the people. Rabbi Yehuda, who's the one that's arguing now with Rabbi Yossi, he also added in, he says, the 3 mitzvahs that the Jewish people were commanded when they entered the land. One of them is to set up a king. To destroy Amalek was number 2. Number 3 is to build a base of Mikdash. Now, if he's arguing, and this is not necessarily a flow to his argument with Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says that he's allowed to do this. Rabbi Yehuda says that he wasn't allowed to do those things that it lists in Shmuel. And then Rabbi Yehuda says that there's 3 mitzvahs. One of them is to set up a king. That this parsha, the Rashi learns that when it says Rabbi Nairoya is speaking, he says, "Same tasam malach melech" was only said because the people would complain and they would ask for a king. But that wasn't the initial, it was sort of like, begrudgingly, Hashem said, "Same tasam malach melech." That's the way Rashi puts it. Right. We don't need it. Like Hill is explaining that. Hashem is the king. We don't need another. By the way, there's this Reb Naftali. There's this book by Menashe ben Yisrael, The Conciliator. You ever see that? Yeah, it's very interesting. It's in English. The large version of it had an introduction by Elisheva Kalbach, who's a historian, just like a little thing. But it was very expensive. But it was sold in 2 volumes, like cheaper, and it was all contradictions in Tanakh. Like it says, one place it says, "Same tas melech melech." Another place, Shmuel gets angry. One side it says, "You shall not steal." Another place it says that they took the spoils of Egypt. And, they asked and they didn't return it. They borrowed, I think. Anyway, it gives very interesting answers, like these old answers from commentary that we're not so familiar with, like from people from his times, and like, yeah, very interesting. It's like hundreds of different questions. He set it up like contradictions. It's called the Conciliator.
The Conciliator.
Yeah, it's a very interesting book.
Huh.
Usually there's like exceptions.
Right. Each one is like you have to analyze
like,
each
when
one.
appointing the Melech, it was like pension. I think that was
Yeah, that's one of the answers. Okay. Shenemar Marta Simalai Melech. You'll say place on me, king. Okay. Tanya was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Zekanim shebedur kahigin shalom." The elders of that generation in Shmuel's time, they actually asked appropriately. They said, give us a king to judge us. What's wrong with that? But the commoners, the ignoramuses, they messed it up. They said, Shnemar, let us be like the other nations. He'll judge us and he'll take us out to battle, which that was not the job of the king to take them to battle originally. That's the king was there to judge. And then they messed it up. Okay.
They want to be like the other nations.
That's the question here. What's the emphasis? Is it like the other nations? Yeah. Rashi says it's because they asked him to go to battle. They wanted the king to go to battle. Tanya was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Yosi Yomer, Rabbi Yosi, Shalish mitzvahs nestavi Yisrael b'knisasam. He also has this, that there's 3 mitzvahs that the Jewish people were commanded when they come into the knisasam la'aretz. Lahamad melech, to establish a king, set up a king. Lachar zar shel Amalek, to destroy Amalek. Live in the same base of Bechir, and to build the base of Mikdash. I don't know which one is first. Which one do you do first? First the base of Mikdash, first Amalek, first the king. Shwaimer, so the pasuk says, Ki yad al keska, that the hand is on the throne of Hashem. Milchama Hashem la'Amalek. It's a battle for God, for Amalek. So if this pasuk teaches me, Lahamid lamelech tchila, that to set up the king comes first. Because it says on the throne of Hashem, when it says throne, that's referring to the king. King sits on a throne. Shenemar, Vayeshev Shloima al Kisi Hashem lamelech. Shloima sat on the throne of Hashem as a king. But now I don't know what's number 2, what's number 3. Is it to build the base of Mikdash, or is it to destroy Amalek? So when it says that he will give you respite from all your enemies, and then it says, and the place that Hashem chose, that should be the place that you'll bring your offerings, right? So now we understand, it says that we have to be freed from our enemies to destroy Amalek first. By David it also says, when David was sitting in his house and Hashem had given him respite from his enemies, then it says, see that I'm sitting in the house of cedar wood, in the house in the ark of Hashem is in a tent. So let's build now basically when you're free from his enemies, so first to destroy Amalek, and then you build a base of Mikdash. Amarish Lakish. Lakish says, Betchila originally, Malach Shleim al Yainim. Shlomo ruled also the upper world, not just down here. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Vayeshev Shlomo al kisei Hashem." Shlomo sat on the throne of Hashem. He ruled the upper worlds as well. But in the end, he ruled the lower worlds. That he ruled over the other side of the river from Tiftach until Asa. Asa sounds like Gaza. Rav and Shmuel is machlekes. Chad Amar, one says Tiftach b'seif ha'olam v'Asa b'seif ha'olam. One says Tiftach is one end of the world and Asa is the other end of the world. So world, all the way around. Very good. Very good. Same machlekes Rav and Shmuel, right?
What were these?
I'm not sure. Shalom is pointing out that in Megillah, there's also machlekes if Haidu and Kush are. And I think also over there it's Rav and Shmuel, right?
Around Bubble and right?
Kush is India usually.
Oh.
Ethiopia.
Oh,
Haidu is India. Yeah. I think that's even another name for Ethiopia was Kush.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they actually found a place called Kush.
In that area.
Yeah.
So one of them says that Tiftach is one end of the world and Asa is the other end. Chadamar, one says Tiftach Baza Bahadi Adadi Aviyasva. They were right next to each other. And it's a simile. It's saying just like he ruled from Tiftach to Asa, which is like this little area right in his backyard, so too he ruled over the whole world. Okay. Now the Gemara goes on. But in the end, like Malach al Yisrael, he only ruled over the Jewish people. Shnemar ani Kehelas Melech al Yisrael. Says I am Kehelas. I was the king over Israel. That's all he says over Israel. And in the end, like Malach al Yerushalayim only ruled over Jerusalem. It wasn't even the holy Israel. Shnemar Divrei Kehelas ben David Melech B'Yerushalayim. The king over Yerushalayim. And then he only ruled over his own bed. He had the soldiers, right? 60 soldiers surrounding his bed. In the end, he only ruled over his staff. As it says, this is my portion from all of my toil. Rav Shmuel, machlekes Rav and Shmuel again. One says that it was his staff. One says that it was just his garment, his talis. Hadar Eloi Hadar. Did he ever get his kingdom back? Now we're like sort of rushing through this, but there was this whole story in Masech Peschitin about Ashmedai. Do you remember that story? Remember Hillel? Ashmedai? He was a king of the demon. He sent who did he send? Ben Yada? Something. He sent someone to capture him.
Yeah.
And he filled up he would drink from this thing and he filled it up with wine instead of water, and he drank it, and then he was able to tie him with a chain that had Hashem's name on it, and he wasn't able to get out of it, and then he brought him to Shlomo, and then he was able to get the shamir. The guard brought Ashmedai was able to get the shamir worm, and the shamir worm helped him build the Beis Hamikdash. But then Ashmedai, he asked for Shlomo had a question for him. He said, "Okay, untie me," and then he got rid of ousted Shlomo, and he took over the throne as an imposter.
Yeah, he transformed.
Right. And he was there, and Shlomo was exiled.
Yeah.
And so it said he ruled over Shlomo was the king, but only over his staff. So the question is, did he ever get the kingdom back from Ashmedai?
Yeah, he did.
So it's machlekes. One says yes, one says no. Rabbi Shmuel, Chadam Hadar v'Chadam Eloi Hadar. Mandam Eloi Hadar, one that says they never got it back. So Melech v'Hedyet. First he ruled, and then he became a commoner. Mandam Hadar, the one that says he got it back. Melech v'Hedyet Melech. First he was a king, then he was a commoner, then he got it back. And that's Gemara over there. It says, how did he get it back? He went to the Sanhedrin, and then they asked Basheva something, and then they went in and they made a new chain and they tied him Hashem's name. Right.
She was the one that recognized there was.
They asked that he demand. They said that he demands relations even when she's a nida,
Yeah, yeah.
and Sheva said Shlomo would never do that. So something like that. That was the story in Gittin. Okay. Piritz Lassus Leiderech. It says the king is able to breach walls and to make roads. Tanarabanan. It says when they conquer another area and they take a treasury, so that goes to the king, right? It's not like a common soldier is going to go into the treasury of this king, this place that they conquered, and take the crown. It says the king's treasury goes. Shar Biza Shabaizin, the other type of loot that they take from the country that they conquer, half goes to the king, half goes to the people. Amalei Abayla Rabdimi. Baya says to Rabdimi. Rabdimi was one of the travelers from Eretz Yisrael. Ravacha. Some say that he said it to Ravacha. I get that if there's a battle and there's the treasuries that goes to the king, Orcha de Milk, so that's appropriate. But where do you get this from? That all the other loot gets divided half and half. So he answers that there's a pasuk by Yimshechu LaHashem LeNagid, that Hashem appointed Shlomo as a leader, LeTzadik, Bach as in the end of the pasuk LeKayin, and Tzaddik was appointed as the Kayin. Makish Nagid LeTzadik. So we compare the leader to Tzaddik. Tzaddik is the Kayin Gadol. Ma Tzaddik Mechzalei Mechzalacher, just like by Tzaddik. When they divided up the lechem upon him, the showbread, half of it went to the Kayin Gadol. There were 12 loaves, right? 6 went to the Kayin Gadol, and 6 went to the other Kayinim. Afnagid Mechzalei Mechzalacher. So too, the leader, half of it, the spoils go to him, the king, and half of it goes to everyone else. But Tzaddik Ufeminel, how do we know that Tzaddik would get half of the lechem upon him? It says the Tanya was taught in a brayso. Rabbi says, it will be for Aaron and his sons. Mechzel Aaron, Mechzel Levanov. Half for Aaron, half for his sons. It says Aaron Levanov, like as if it's equal. That means that Aaron gets half. So too, the king is going to get half of the spoils. Okay. Mishnah says, "Layarbele nashim," you shouldn't increase wives. He's only allowed to have 18. Not so much. Only 18. Let's put a little funny over here. Layarbele nashim. Right? You shouldn't have too many. Okay. Beyond 18. Right.
What?
Yeah.
What?
What you said?
He's the leader of the Mongols.
Not even add.
The kings back then would have a lot. I think in the history of mathematics, I think one of the sources for like mathematics where they developed like how multiplication and things like that was working out for some king in some Arab king how to figure out how often he would be with all of these different wives. It was very complex, and they developed the mathematics for that, and that's like the Arabic numerals and all of this. But you would think it's about grain or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. At least that's what the story that they have. Rabbi Yehuda says, Marbuhulai, no, he's allowed to have even more. As long as they don't make his heart stray from the way of Hashem. I think not stray from leading the country is important too, but I think it means like not to stray to worship idols. Reb Shimon says, even if it's just one, and if she's going to make his heart stray, he's not allowed to marry her. Why did it say that he shouldn't increase? That's dafilu kavigayel. That's even if they're righteous, like Abigail. Abigail was a very righteous woman. She did not allow David to sin with her. Remember when David was chasing her, we had a Gemara Megillah. Abigail was a prophetess. Gemara says that, her husband was very mean to David. David had supported his man. When he came to ask him for food, he chased him out. No, Naval. I don't know, forget Carmeli or something. Shimi Ben Gera, that's the person that cursed him. Yeah. But this was someone else. And then Abigail, he chased Abigail for a certain amount of parsais because her thigh, it was exposed. He wanted to sin with her. Abigail said, with me, you're not going to sin. And the Gemara learns she was a prophetess, and she meant that with someone else, you'll end up sinning, which was Bathsheba. And then she said, but you should remember your maidservant, whatever. And it turns out that Naval died a week later, and David married her. So now the Gemara says, the Maimer Rabbi Yehuda darsh time of the Krav, Rabbi Shimon darsh time of the Krav. This Mishnah is very odd in the way we understand Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon with the other sages. Usually Rabbi Shimon's of the opinion that you look at the reasoning of the Torah, and you can qualify the halachas of the Torah based on what the reason is. You can adjust it, because if the reason was this, then it doesn't apply. Then you can say that it doesn't apply. That's Reb Shimon's view. It's Darshin and time of the Kra. Look at why the Torah said it. Over here, Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's saying Darshin and time of the Kra, and Reb Shimon is saying not Darshin and time of the Kra. Usually Rabbi Yehuda would say, look, the Torah says, what do we know about the reason of the Torah? Maybe that's your own reason. And Rabbi Shimon would say, no. Here in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says that you're allowed to have many wives, as long as, because the pasuk says, don't have many wives lest they cause your heart to stray. So Rabbi Yehuda says, well, if they don't cause your heart to stray, then you can even increase more than 18. That's a view that we were expecting Rabbi Shimon to say. And it's not, it's Rabbi Yehuda. And then Rabbi Shimon comes along and argues. Oh. Yeah, he always gives the classic answer. Switch the names around. Right? That's what the Gemara would say. The Gemara has another reason. The Gemara has an answer. But we have the opposite always. The Tanya, the Brisa taught, Almana, when it comes to a widow, we're talking about taking a collateral from a widow. We mentioned this yesterday or 2 days ago. You're not allowed to take a collateral from a widow, whether she's rich or whether she's poor. Shouldn't take the garment from a widow. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says, Ashira, if she's wealthy, you're allowed to take a collateral for the loan that you want to get prepaid, right? Aniya, but if she's poor, you can't take the collateral. You're going to need to return it. You're going to give her a bad name amongst her neighbors. Amrina, on my kamar, what does that mean? Hachi kamar means because you're going to take the collateral. Therefore, you're going to need to return it to her. This is the version of this brisa. Wasn't so clear. The Gemara is explaining what it means. Because at night, if she doesn't have a garment to sleep in, you're going to have to give it to her. And then in the morning, you're going to want to take it again. But the Messiah Shem Rabbi Shechina say, you're going to be at her house in the evening. You're going to be at her house in the morning. It's not going to look good amongst the neighbors that there's a single woman, a widow, and there's a man that's coming to her house and every night and every morning. Alma, we see from this, Rabbi Yehuda loydarish time of the Kra. Rabbi Yehuda does not darshan, does not expound on the reasoning of the pasuk, and therefore he says that the law is the law and it doesn't matter what the reason is. Reb Shimon darsh time of the Kra. Reb Shimon says no, it matters what the reason is, and therefore it doesn't apply if she's wealthy. It doesn't fit with our mission. So the Gemara answers, Ba'alma Rabbi Yehuda loydarish time of the Kra. The truth is, you're right. Rabbi Yehuda does not look at the reasoning of the pasuk. Shani Hacha here, it's different to Mefarish time of the Kra, that it explains the reasoning of the pasuk. The pasuk itself says the reason, because you should not be Meser Sliba. Ma tam layarbelei nashim. What's the reason why you should not increase wives, multiply wives? Mishum del yasel levavei, so that his heart doesn't stray. The pasuk adds that in. The pasuk adds it in. Reb Shimon is saying, why the pasuk have to add it in? Reb Shimon Amalach. So Rabbi Yehuda is ready to darshan because the pasuk clearly says the reason. Rabbi Shimon Amalach, Rabbi Shimon says michti. But Alma dashin time of the Kra. I don't need the pasuk to tell me. I always look at the reasoning. In Cain, lichtav krali arbelei nashim lishtik. So then why does the pasuk have to continue? Just say, don't increase wives, and then be quiet. And we'll know what the reason is anyway. But no, I mean, what's the reason why you shouldn't increase? So that his heart should not go astray. So why does it say that his heart should, so that his heart should not go astray? The answer is, it's coming to include that even if it's one wife, he shouldn't marry her. She's going to cause his heart to go astray. So then why does it say not to increase? That is not to increase, is even if the reason doesn't apply. I feel like Abigail, even if she's righteous. Like Abigail. Okay. Now the Gemara wants to know, where do we get the number 18 from? 18 wives. Hanish Menas Minalan. What's the number 18 from? So Chai, right? The Ksiv, maybe that's where the Chai necklace came from, because the king would make for his 18 wives a necklace, the Chai. Oh, he would make one would say Aleph, one would say Beis, one would say Gimel. And the 18th had the Chai. Okay, the Ksiv says in the pasuk, "Vayivoldu leDavid banim b'Chevron." Is that the way I read it? You can see in your Gemara in the Torah. It's Vayivoldu. You know how to find it. It's the first wide line over here. Vayivoldu. You know the Torah? Yeah, look over here. What does that say? Dalet? Yeah? The Hey? So now look down in the Torah at number Hey. Torah Shalom.
This?
Yeah. Read it to me. How does it start?
Vayivaldu.
Okay, good. Vayivoldu leDavid banim b'Chevron. David was born to David sons in Hebron. Vayihi b'chayrai Amnain lachinayim hayisraelis. His firstborn son, David's firstborn son, was Amnain, and he was born to Achinayam. Okay, wife number one. Umishneyu, his second son, Kilav, that was his name, was born Abigail Eishes Naval Carmeli, was born to Abigail. That was okay. Wife number two. Bashlishi, the third son, Avshalom. We're here discussing the sons, and we're mentioning the mothers, right? And so we're going to figure out how many wives he has. Avshalom ben Macha. Avshalom, the son of Macha. Okay, that's wife number three. So far we have Achinayam, Abigail, and Macha. Haraviyi, the fourth son, is Adoniah ben Chagis. Chagit would be the modern way of saying it. Adoniah was the fourth son, so the wife would be Chagit. Chagis. Chamishi, the fifth son, is Shafati ben Avital. Right? Avital would be the fifth wife. Shishi.
Was the son of
No, Shlomo was the son of Bashem.
So,
but here we're going back to the earlier children. Yeah.
Didn't Absalom was the second child, not the third.
Now we say Absalom is the third.
He killed his oldest brother because his sister.
One second. Hold on. We'll get to it.
Spoiler.
All on this stuff. It's all on this stuff. Shalom telling me the end of the Gemara. 1 second. Shishi, the sixth son is Yisrael leEgla Eshes David, to Egla, David's wife. Eile Yoldu leDavid b'Chevron. These were born to David in Hebron. Chaim, are you familiar with Moshe David Bali?
Of course he is.
He was a Makubal.
No. What's the name of his book?
I'm not sure. It's I think it was like Sifrei Rav Moshe David Bali.
No.
Like a thing. He was a Talmud of the Ramchal. But over here he writes on this pasuk in Shmuel. I taught Shmuel. I had this. He writes that Amnon is the first son is Chesed. The six sons represent the spheres. Amnon is Chesed, and we know what he did with Tamar. He was in love with Tamar. Kilov was this big, tremendous Talmud Chacham. He's Gevura. And the third son is Avshalom, Tiferes. Paris is associated with Malchus. That's why Avshalom wants the kingdom. And the fourth son is Adoniah, is Netzach, and also Adoniah also wants to usurp the kingdom. That's Netzach. And then Shvatia is Hoid. Somehow Hoid is associated with Mishpat. And then the third one I'm sorry, the sixth one is Yisraim, is Eglah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but it associates Eglah. The Gemara is going to tell us soon is Michal, which is Yisoid. It's going to say that he loved Eglah. He was like connected to Michal the most. Anyway, that's his. Figured you'd like that. So, Kamarle Navi. The Navi says, "Ima'at va'isifalach kahina v'kahina." What happened was, after he took Basheva, no, where did he say Ima'at va'isifalach? Which Navi does it? Does it tell you the context? Anyway, the Navi says, I'm sorry. Nasana Navi? Was this one after he took Basheva? He says, "I'll increase for you so much, like so much. Kahina v'kahina, so much and so much." So how many wives did he have? Kahina is Shis. He had 6 wives. V'kahina, so in other words, another 6. Kahina and another 6 is Shis. The Havalut, how many straight? So 6 plus 6 plus 6. Kahina v'kahina is 18. We don't have the names here because the names were listed. Those were his wives that he had in Hebron. Afterwards, he went to Yerushalayim and he had more wives. Okay. Maskevla Ravina. We're rebuking him for taking Bashar. Ravina asks a question. Ema Kahina Tarti Srei. Maybe Kahina, the first one, add 6. So now I have 12. Now, the Kahina is, and then like the first 12, the Esther and Varba would be 24. So why is it 18? Because I add 6 to 6, I have 12, and then Kahina like that. Maybe it's like cumulative. So Tanya Nami Hachi. We also taught in Bryce, you shouldn't have more than 24. Another opinion here. He says, Himli, I hold like that opinion, right?
At the beginning it said multiply.
Went to 24, right? And if you can darshan the vav, which is a discussion in other places, then it's really 48 because and it says and kahena and like such would be the and would increase another, so 12 it becomes 24, and 24 doubled this becomes 48. More than 48 wives. Okay, but Tana Didan. My time. So what's the reason why we said 18? We do a comparison between the last kahina to the first kahina, just like the first one, makena kama shis, afkena basris shis. Do that verbal analogy. But Michal was there also. Where's Michal in that? Amarab Egla's Michal. Rab says that Egla, the 6th one was Michal. Lamanikushma Egla. Why is she called Egla? Shechaviva olav ke'egla. Because she was as beloved as a calf. I guess that means like the calves were cute. What is there a note over there? This, how do you pronounce this? This cognomen? What's a cognomen? Is that like a metaphor? This cognomen was used for Michal as a term of endearment, such as a lamb is used in Yiddish or even Old English. The special fondness for Michal is also shown in the language of the verse as Egla. Okay, I guess a lamb is like something that we're fond of, like today we would say a teddy bear or something, you know. Anyway, that's okay.
There was a president, Teddy Roosevelt was on that started the Teddy bear.
Oh, really? Before Teddy Roosevelt, there was no teddy bear? No, really? That's how it started?
That's how I found out about it recently.
Okay. Interesting. And we have another source for this, about this calf, that it's used as a cognomen, if that's the word, for a wife. It says Shimshon said, "Luli charashtim beglasi v'gaimer." Remember when Shimshon went? He told his father he wants a wife, this Philistine woman, and then they got married. On the way to the wedding, a lion attacked him, and he tore the lion open, and he killed the lion. And when he came back, there was a beehive that was in the lion. Anyway, when he came to the wedding, he said, "I have a riddle for you." I have a riddle for you. What's something that eats but becomes food and sweetness comes out of it? So they didn't know. He said they had this agreement that if you don't know, then you have to give me 30 clothing, and if I don't know or something, if you don't know, if you figure it out, I'll give you 30 clothing. Anyway, they told his wife that they're going to burn down her father's house if she doesn't get the answer. So she cries to him, and so he tells her the answer. Anyway, went and told him, and when they tell him the answer, that it's a lion that has a beehive in the carcass. So he said, if he tells him this, Luli charashtim beglas, if you didn't plow with my calf, it means if you didn't convince my wife to tell you, you never would have gotten the answer. End of the story is he went and killed 30 Pelishtim and he gave them the clothing. So that was okay. Now the Gemara says, Michal b'nei, but did Michal have any children? Here it says Yisrael is a son. She didn't have any children until the day of her death. Amar Rav Chizda, yeah, that little nuance there. Until the day of her death, she didn't have. But on the day of the death, she did have. She must have died in childbirth. Michdi. Where are these children? Where are we counting these? Bechevron. You can't say that because later on they go to Yerushalayim and David decides to bring the Aron to Yerushalayim, and he's dancing in front of the Aron. And Michal is ashamed of the way he's dancing, and she rebukes him that because his leg was exposed when he was jumping in the dancing. He said, "My father would never have done that, right?" So, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Yosef, Shalaksa Michal lemitarfasa, that Michal was punished then, that she won't have children. So he has a new answer. Ela Ema. So how could you say that she only had children later? She had children after. She couldn't have children from afterward. Rather, you have to say ad oisay maisa hayala. Before then, she did have children. After she rebuked David, she didn't have children. Okay. Now the Gemara says 1 second. It says it says that David took many more wives in Yerushalayim and concubines. It says that's Lamilish Manasa. That's only up until 18. He had 6 before in Yerushalayim. He took another 12. My nashim or my pelakshim. What's the difference between wives and concubines? Am Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav says name of nashim b'ksuba u'b'kedushin. Women, as when it says wives, that means that's with marriage. Ksuba. There's a responsibility, an obligation on the husband if he divorces her to give ksuba. Pelakshim b'lei ksuba b'lei kedushin. That's without a wedding. It's without any responsibility. Am Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda says, "Name Rav. David had 400 children. All of them were children of Yifas Tayar, of the beautiful women that he meets in battle. He's allowed to live with. Megadli Blair say they all grew their hair like Gentiles. They, I think it's like ponytails type thing. They cut the top and let the sides hang.
Mullet.
What is it called?
Mullet.
Mullet.
It's horrible. Party in the back, business up front.
Party in the
The
back,
four-
business
the
up front. This
400
yes, it's
children.
coming.
Short.
The 400
small.
children.
Bekula and Yeshvei Bekranish Shalzav, all of them would sit in wagons of gold. And Mahalchim Barashi Gaises, they would all go at the head of the army. In a Bali, a great still based David. These were the strong men of the house of David. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Read this as the name of Rav Shalom. This is what you were saying. Tamar Bas Yifas Tayar Haisa. Tamar was the daughter of a Yifas Tayar, of a woman that he met in battle. Now, what the Gemara here wants to say is that Tamar needed to have her own conversion. So therefore, she wasn't actually related to Amnon. Okay, you remember the story? The story was this, that Amnon was in love with his sister Tamar. And his friend advised him, feign illness, make believe you're sick, and she'll come and serve you. And when she's together with you in the room, you'll grab her. Anyway, that's what happened. And afterwards, Avshalom then kills
Amnon.
Amnon. Now Amnon is the son of Achinayam. Avshalom is the son of Macha, and Tamar is also the daughter of Macha. So it says Shenemar. It says that Rab is saying that Tamar is the daughter of Macha before she converted. Shenemar v'atadaberna lamelech ki lo yimnani mimecha. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to rape me? If you talk to the king and he'll allow us to get married. But if it would be a regular wife, what's she saying? He would allow us to get married. They're brother and sister. They have the same father. Different mothers, the same father. It must be that they weren't actually related because she was a convert. Convert's not related.
So does this mean that she was the product of the first Bia?
Yeah.
Because only one is allowed, right? Before conversion? Yeah.
Right. This would be before the conversion. Must be that she was the daughter of. Okay, very interesting, right? Amnon Reyosh Mayonadav ben Shima Ache David Vahaya Ish Chacham Gaimer. Yonadav was David's cousin, because I'm sorry, not David's cousin, was Amnon's cousin, because he was the daughter of Shima. Sorry, he was the son of Shima, who was David's brother. Amar Rav Yudam Rav Yishlachim l'Risha. Amar Madua Takochadal ben Amelach. Yemlei Nadav Shchavam Mishkav V'Yiskel. He gives him all this advice. Yonadav is the guy that advised him all of this. Lena Yasabria, and she'll make the food for this is what Amnon is telling David. And she takes it and she's like serving it to him. Amar Rav Yudah Marav. Rav Yudah says name Rav Shasalamini Tigun. She made for him fried food. But Yisnei Amnon Sina Gedela Ma'id. Amnon hated her very much right after they had relations. My time on Rav Yitzchak Nima Kashralai, that a hair of hers got tied on his organ, and became like sterile, became castrated. 1 second. What did she do wrong? Why does he hate her? This was a mistake. No, she actually tied it on purpose. That either they didn't grow the hair, the pubic hair, or they shaved it off, but they were beautiful and they didn't have the hair on the armpits or on the pubic hair. Well, Shani Tamar the Bas Yifastaya, but Tamar was a daughter of Yifastaya. Okay, let's leave it right here. She was a daughter of a non-Jewish woman, and that's why she didn't have the same customs. Or maybe she grew the hair. It's unclear.
So that means they weren't real siblings, halachically.
Right.
I thought Yitzi said this was a family share.
Yeah, I know. I'm scratching my head a little bit here.
Okay, thank you.